Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Buckeye Weekly Podcast. I'm Tony Gerdeman here, as always, with Tom Orr. Tom, how's it going?
Well, Tony, I am so glad you asked. As I was waiting there, I was thinking, what should we talk about at the start of today's show? And then I realized I have a prop right next to me that will tell you how's it going. So here's the prop. You ready? YouTube watchers will know what I'm doing. Everyone else is going to go. Listeners are going to go, what? Because it won't translate well to audio. But the answer, Tony, is confetti. It's going confetti for me. We have, with members at BuckeyeInsiders.com, we recently said, like, hey, we've got some leftover confetti from the 2024 national championship game. We would be happy to mail that out to you if you'd like to, just shoot me a DM or whatever on the site. If you're a member, we would love to send some out to you. And Tony, that continues to be a very popular promotion. We did that at a previous stop, and it is still stuff that people are interested in. So I've been making friends with the folks at my local post office a lot more than I typically have. So, yes, if you would like some confetti, you can join us at BuckeyeInsiders.com and then just shoot me an email or message me on the board. And I would be happy to add you to my growing list. Believe it or not, Tony, we are actually starting to run out. We got two enormous bags of
Hmm.
confetti after that national championship game, to the point that we look like absolute crazy people walking out of that stadium on that night. But we are actually starting to run out. So if you would like your confetti, you should join BuckeyeInsiders.com right now, and you can get your own.
That was such an event. I can't remember if it was that game or the previous game. It was probably that one where I'm just looking around for random bags so that I could put some confetti in. And there was a bag that said turkey on it. It was a brown paper bag. It said handwritten turkey. Like there were some turkey sandwiches in there at one point, and if there had still been turkey sandwiches in there now, I would have had to dump out those sandwiches so that I could put confetti in there.
Well, Tony, our members are gobbling up that confetti. So yes, we are always happy to provide that for our members.
I apologize for that last pun. That is not ever the intention of the show, and I will not edit it out because I want Tom to be punished for it. Tom the turkey, if you will. Anyway, it is not yet November, though we are punning it up like Thanksgiving weekend is upon us, but it is not. Tom, what we're doing here is we're going to revisit some things that we've done back in February, and we're going to talk about some. Today, we're going to talk about Bo Jackson and our expectations for him this season. We did this show back in February, and I put some numbers out, and you were okay with them. After going through spring and seeing what we saw from Bo Jackson in the spring, which wasn't much, it was
Not
nothing.
much, as I recall. No.
But has our opinions changed? And really, when we talk about the numbers that I projected, it maybe not be anything that he's going to do to change those numbers, but maybe what other people will do to change those numbers. And so I'll just go ahead and say it right now. This is what I had in February, and you were okay with it back then. You didn't put up a fight or anything, but I said 6.3 yards per carry, which I think is very doable. He was at 6.1 last year, so 6.3 is not much of a stretch. In fact, I'm not going to say it's low, but I wouldn't be shocked if it's higher. 1,176 yards and 11 touchdowns. And this is over the course of however long the season goes. And I don't know that I'm going to change anything about that. Right now, though, looking at it, it seems a smidge low.
Well, I think these are still pretty solid numbers, and we're going to do a show on Isaiah West
Mm,
next or later in the week. And I think when we get into that show, that's going to be part of why I'm explaining why I don't, why I think Bo Jackson could have better numbers this year, but not necessarily wildly, significantly better numbers. I think the carries are going to get divided up a little bit more. I really kind of like these numbers, though, because last
mm,
year, 6.1 yards per carry, so you're projecting him to end up at 6.3, so, a little better. 1,090 yards rushing. So again, you're expecting him to have about 100 more yards rushing. But the big jump being from 6 touchdowns to, what'd you say, 11, 10? I mean, that
11.
that I think is pretty much dead on, because I'm expecting him to have a better year. He's bigger, he's stronger. He should be better this year than he was last year. The offensive line should be better than it was last year. So I think you're expecting a reasonable step forward. And the spot where you would maybe expect the biggest step forward is in that touchdowns category, because last year, CJ Donaldson vultured a bunch of those touchdowns where Bo Jackson would kind of get him down there, and then CJ Donaldson would come in inside the 10, and he finished with 10 rushing touchdowns last year. Well, he's not on the team this year. And I think Bo Jackson, being a little bit bigger, a little bit stronger, might be a little bit better positioned to take some of those goal line carries and end up with a little bit of a step forward. So, in terms of the yards per carry, yeah, a little better. In terms of total yardage, yeah, a little better. In terms of the touchdowns, big step forward. I think that's pretty spot on in my mind.
I'm looking at it, and over the course of 15 games, you're talking about 78.4 yards per game. He averaged 83 yards rushing per game last year. But overall, like, he had a high carry game of 22 against Michigan. We've talked about previously in 2024, neither Quinshon Judkins or Travion Henderson had over 20 carries in the game. So I'm wondering if we get back to that sort of thing where nobody's going to have 20 carries because it's not necessary. Other guys can work in there. And last year, Bo Jackson, 13 games. He missed the first game against Texas, not because he was injured, but because he was a freshman. He finished with 179 carries. My numbers here have him at 187 this year. And that's, like I said, that could be 13, 14, 15 games, maybe 12 games. Who knows? But I do think he will have more carries, but the carries per game may go down. And the yards per game may go down. But overall, say he plays 2 more games than he did last year with last year's numbers, that 1090 goes to about 1250. And that's just maintaining his average. So that's why I'm looking at 1,176. And this, I think, is the byproduct of the rest of the team more so than Bo Jackson in terms of only 1,176. But I'm telling you, there's only been 2 guys or 1 guy in the history of Ohio State football that has rushed for 1,000 yards in his freshman and sophomore year, and that was J.K. Dobbins. And J.K. Dobbins did not come close to averaging 6 yards a carry as a sophomore. So I think 1,176, like I said, it feels a little low, but also I've been talking about how deep this room is. So is there room for 200 carries from one person? And I don't know that there is. And then also, Tom, the impact of Arthur Smith, I think, makes the running game more efficient. So maybe there are fewer carries and the average does go up a little. So I think that's also going to be a factor, Arthur Smith.
Yeah, and I think we've talked about Arthur Smith, we've talked about the offensive line in a bunch of these shows where we've talked about the running backs, and I think both of those are going to be positive impacts on the running backs and the running game production on the whole. I think the biggest thing that's going to change Bo Jackson's numbers and maybe keep him, and you said 1170 or whatever it was, and if he ends up at 1250, like I'm considering that well within the margin of error here, that, if he's at 1250, even 1300 yards, I'm kind of going, yeah, okay, that's about right. Maybe they play one more game, whatever it is. Where the carries last year, 179 for Bo Jackson, that I think is going to maybe stay about where it was. Mm-hmm. Where I think you're going to see some significant changes is in the carries for all the other guys. Last year, CJ Donaldson had 96 carries. James Peoples had 61. Isaiah West had 59. I think you're going to see probably 3 to 4 guys in that, probably at least 3 guys in that 100 carries or so, because I think the running back talent is distributed in a way that's probably a little bit closer than it was last year, where Isaiah West last year, they liked Isaiah West a lot, but he missed all the spring. He missed fall camp. He was really not 100% until relatively late in the season. And then at the end of the season, had a shoulder procedure because he wasn't 100% at the end of the season. So you're going to see a lot more of him. I think you're going to see, we'll get to Jacoby Jackson in a couple shows probably, but I think you're going to see at least as much from Jacoby Jackson, if he's healthy as you did out of CJ Donaldson last year. So I think you're going to see those. And of course, Legend Bey is going to be someone who's probably going to take some carries as well. So I think you're going to see those carries divided up a little more, where maybe they're going to run the ball a little bit more, but who's the guy who determines how those carries are divided up? It's Carlos Locklyn. Mm-hmm. And Carlos Locklyn we've talked to Carlos Locklyn. Carlos Locklyn really likes his running back room this year, and Carlos Locklyn, I think, is going to want to spread those carries around a little bit because he has seen the value in spreading those carries around a couple of years ago. So, I'm expecting Bo Jackson to be better and the stats to be better than they were last year, but I don't think this is going to be a huge light years forward from him because they're just going to divide stuff up a little bit more.
I also think he will have more short yardage attempts, so that 6.3 could be 6.8 without those short yardage attempts, but because he's more experienced and bigger, he's going to be running the ball on 3rd and 1 and picking up 1.5 yards more often, or running the ball from the 2-yard line and picking up 2 yards. So the overall average won't be as outlandish as it could be. The last thing with Bo Jackson is, as we talk about Legend Bey and Isaiah West, there are constant reminders from inside the WAC that don't forget that Bo Jackson rushed for 1,000 yards as a true freshman last year and averaged over 6 yards a carry, and did it while not entirely healthy, and learned some lessons, because so much of the talk last year, or since last year, and even some of last year, was what he didn't do and what he left on the field, rather than celebrating and acknowledging what he did do, because he became the 5th true freshman in Ohio State history to rush for 1,000 yards, the 3rd under Ryan Day, since Ryan Day has arrived. It's not common, even though it seems more common than it has been in the past. It's a tough thing to do, especially when, again, he did not play in the season opener because, well, he just wasn't ready. Just a true freshman. Then he goes on to rush for 1,000 yards. So I think we expect, you and I have talked about it, the yards that he missed won't be missed. And so if that's the case, I'm also not going to be shocked by 1,400 yards this year. And maybe not 7 yards a carry, but we saw J.K. Dobbins do that in 2019 or 2017 as a freshman.
Yeah, I mean, certainly there is room to grow, and I am expecting him to be better, and I am expecting him to maybe pick up some of the yards that he left on the table last year and some of the touchdowns he maybe left on the table last year. I think there's room for improvement, and I think you're going to see improvement. He's going to be bigger and stronger. We talk about freshmen all the time, where you kind of hit that wall partway through the year, and that happens for just about everybody. And I think that I don't know that happened too much for him, not as much as you might have expected, but he was another guy who at the end of the year had to have surgery to clean some stuff up. So he was not healthy 100% at the end of last year. So if he can stay healthier, and probably dividing the carries up as we're sort of expecting them to do is going to help on that front, then yeah, the ceiling here is way more than 1,200 yards. It's certainly possible he ends up with more than 1,200 yards. If he ends up at 7 yards a carry, well, then even with the same number of carries we're projecting, he's looking at 1,350, 1,400 yards, something like that. And that's well within the possibility here. I don't think you're going to see the 2,000-yard rushing season like you saw with J.K. Dobbins in his 3rd season, just because the carries are going to get divided up way more than they used to. You will probably see a 2,000-yard rushing season, but it's going to be split between a couple of guys.
Yeah, the question there is, can 2 guys do it rather than 3? Because 3 will certainly do it. So there are my numbers: 1176, 11 touchdowns, 6.3 yards per carry. What do you guys think? Am I low? Am I high in terms of the numbers? Just go ahead and throw your comments in there. If you're watching on YouTube, I'll check those out. And of course, if you're listening, 5-star rating and review is always appreciated. If you want to find us, you can find us at youtube.com/@BuckeyeInsiders. If you want to interact with us to the greatest extent possible, you can go to BuckeyeInsiders.com, become a member, say hello to us there on the forum, where we've got a bunch of discussions going on, a bunch of people there now talking Ohio State football, Ohio State basketball, and everything in between. So that will do it from here. Thank you all for tuning in, and we will talk to you all later.